Fallout was brought to us by Amazon Prime. I was initially interested in this because of the involvement of Jonathan Nolan. I was a pretty massive fan of Westworld season 1 specifically. And I think he did a really great job in Westworld of like establishing characters and world building and intrigue. And because of all of those things, I was really interested. Now, my introduction specifically to Fallout, I would say, is I'm pretty familiar with what the game is about, like in terms of like a post-apocalyptic world, people get in a vault, and 200 years later, and then they play through an apocalyptic world. That's my extent of understanding the Fallout universe. That's not a lot, I recognize. But I was certainly intrigued when Jonathan and Lisa Joy was attached to that storyline. I felt like they could absolutely play with that and work with it and do something super interesting with it.
I know that I've lived a relatively comfortable life.
Stop! Lucy!
The series begins with Walton Goggins entertaining at a birthday party. You're not sure exactly what his character is doing there or why he's entertaining, but it's not super important to the storyline either, because soon after that, bombs drop, and then it cuts to black. It comes back and we're introduced to the vault and the vault drillers. This is where I think Nolan really gets in his bag. He's able to really curate this like mystique of a world that feels really lived in, but also contained. A world that feels incredibly real, but also something is not as it seems. Like you get that feeling very, very early on. And he really like lives in that, and it works super well. So with that in mind, let's jump into the characters. We're introduced to Lucy MacLean, portrayed by Ellie Purnell. I find her character really super compelling. I think she has the right amount of like authenticity, kindness, and like naivety. I really enjoyed watching her character grow over the course of the series. She goes from this character who grew up in an idyllic world to a person discovering things that just are not as they seem. And the way she discovers them and the way she starts to realize maybe things that she was taught is not true, I think really resonates. Ella does a really great job of not leaning too far into the naivety and not leaning too far into authenticity and kindness. I think specifically with kindness and authenticity, it would be easy to allow her to just be overly generous. And I think the show does that to an extent, but you see it through her eyes in which she feels uncomfortable being kind and being generous, which in the world of the vault would not have been the case. So she sees it as if, okay, I'm going to do this, but that's kind of her mentality. And she doesn't like outright say that. It's more of a show don't tell thing. And she does a great job of like leveling that, I think. Now, the specific purpose of the naivety of it all, I think she does a great job of playing a fish out of water here. Like, she is really compelling when she is being told to do things, asked to do things, and she finds those things not correct or not as by design or something she finds to be outworldish. And she does a really good job of really doing that without it feeling like out of place or too much. Now, my favorite character, I think, is portrayed by Walter Goggins, the Ghoul, and Cooper Howard. I really enjoyed seeing him play the dichotomy of these two separate characters, or at least until they collide. Now, I think the cool thing about Walter Goggins and the Ghoul and Cooper Howard is that you're constantly asking yourself, why is he doing this? But why does this matter to him? What is he fighting for? And he does a really great job of colliding those things all at one time. And it doesn't feel unearned, and it doesn't feel like it's rushed, and it doesn't feel like it's on the nose or anything like that. He does a great job of charming us with Cooper Howard, but keeping us compelled by his actions as the Ghoul. And Walter Goggins is just a absolute treasure. And please do not just put him more in things. Just put him in more things, please. He's fantastic. Now, Maximus, portrayed by Aaron Mote. This one's interesting. I have a couple of thoughts. Ultimately, I think I'm a fan, especially of his acting. But sadly, I don't think I'm a massive fan of his character. I think this is more of a problem with the story than it is with the acting and the actor. What I mean by that is that I think he's fantastic as Maximus, but I don't think the story allows for Maximus to do a lot of things. In fact, I think it asks him to do the same thing over and over and over again. And it just feels like he's a piece of the story that's there to be a side character for our main character to talk to and learn things from. And sadly, when I think they attempt to develop his character, I don't think they land. There's definitely moments they attempt to, but it feels like it's repeated and they don't know exactly what they want to say about him outside of this one specific thing. And it doesn't feel, something about it just doesn't feel right. It just does not land at all. Now, the other character I want to talk about, and I both love this character and hate what this character had to do and what the story asked them to do. Moises Arias. He is fantastic in this, by the way. Let me be very clear. I think he really killed it. Is one of my favorite performances in the show. In fact, sadly, like Maximus, I think the story just asked him to do something as a vehicle for us to understand some of the more minutiae of it all, of the storyline. It feels like his story is only there for exposition, which is kind of unfortunate because I think Moises Arias is honestly probably the second, maybe best performance in the show. And maybe in the future there's more for him to do, but unfortunately for the season 1, I just think the character is just tasked to walk through the show as like not a narrator, but like the narration for us specifically, for us to understand a lot of what's going on. Now let's talk about the Vault storyline in the show, because there's 2 separate storylines going on. The Vault storyline, I think at first I found that storyline more interesting than the exterior world. But what's interesting is I think by the end of the show, I was more interested in the exterior world. And I think part of that is what they was asking Moises Arias to do, right? Like it just felt like it was a very slow pace in comparison to what was outside. And then the exterior, I think at first was not as interesting because I don't know if it was in part that we did not know what was going on outside or the mystique inside the vault was more interesting. But the beginning of the show, you're more interested in the vault. The end of the show, you're more interested in the exterior. All that to say though, ultimately, I really enjoyed this show. I think it's truly fantastic. There are a couple of filler episodes. I think it's probably a better 5-episode series, maybe 6. But ultimately, I really enjoyed this thing. When it needed to be comedy, it was clever, and it wasn't like it went for the jokes. Like it was not low-hanging fruit. It went for jokes, and it was fantastic, and they delivered. When it needed to be dramatic, I felt like those dramatics hit. I really did. Like it was not overly dramatic, but it didn't feel like it was a network television show. It felt like a prestige show. That's the best compliment I can give it. Now, with all of that being said, Amazon dropped a ball on this one. This thing should have been released weekly. This is one of the things outside of like The Last of Us, obviously. I think that's a better show for sure. But this reminds me a lot of WandaVision. Remember watching WandaVision week to week? This is what that felt like. Only it was not week to week. It was me watching this in like 4 days. I really wish I would have had the opportunity of talking about this for 8 weeks. It really would have grew the show, I think. It's really fantastic. It asks a lot of important questions, and it's truly compelling in a lot of different ways. Anywho, let me know what you think in the comments. Please keep it spoiler free. We don't want to spoil it for our friends out there who have not finished the show. And let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts on the show. I really enjoyed it. Also, if there are any Fallout fans, what game should I play? I'm really interested in the world now. And if you liked what you have seen here and you want to see more, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. I'll see you guys next time. Adios.